Am I the a-hole for cutting out almost everyone in my life? I, male 29, have recently been having a tough time with life. Job is stressful, barely pays enough to cover the bills. You know, normal life stressors. I have not been handling it well and my mind has gone to some pretty dark places. I don't have any actual plans to hurt myself, but have experienced suicidal ideation. For those of you who don't know what that is, it is essentially reoccurring thoughts of suicide with no real plan to follow through. After trying to dig myself out of that hole and realizing I couldn't do it alone, I opened up to my girlfriend, female 28 of 4 years, about these thoughts. Big mistake. My girlfriend panicked. She knew I had no active plans to follow through on my thoughts, but the thought of potentially losing me was apparently too much to handle. After we talked, and at a time I thought it was a good, productive, and helpful conversation, I left to run to the store to get a snack for later. While I was gone, my girlfriend called the police. I returned home to see 2 cop cars in my driveway. They told me they were here to take me to the hospital. She evidently told my parents as well. I later found out they were surprised I was having these thoughts, but if I was, they agreed with a temporary hold. I didn't raise a fuss, but I was not a happy camper. I went along. I was placed on a 3-day hold in a rundown piece of trash psych ward in my county. I was so mad, I refused to cooperate. I didn't speak to any of the doctors or nurses. I just sat in complete silence for 3 straight days. On the 2nd day, my parents and girlfriend came to visit. I told the nurse I wasn't taking visitors and they were turned away. It was an awful experience. One of the worst in my life. Being held in a room with a person who thought they were a literal god and would bash his head into a wall. Food was garbage. I had to take pills. And if I didn't, I was threatened with divorce. Doctors didn't have any evidence I was actually suicidal, so after 3 days, they had no choice but to release me. My girlfriend and parents were there to pick me up when I was released. They seemed happy to see me and ask all sorts of questions, mostly about how I was feeling. I didn't respond. I walked straight past them and walked home, 3 miles in the rain. When I got home, I told my girlfriend we were done, that she had until the end of the week to pack her stuff and get out of my house. I told her I no longer trust or love her and never wanted to see her again. My parents berated me, saying that was too harsh and she was doing what she thought was best. I told them if they wanted to take her aside, so be it. I would be done with them too. I blocked their numbers and told them if they stepped a foot on my property, I would call the police for trespassing. Oh, and on top of everything else, my insurance wouldn't cover my stay, so now I'm $10,000 even further in the hole. Am I the a-hole for dumping my girlfriend and cutting off my parents? Now for the top comments. As someone who has permanent ideations, I'm so glad my spouse understands me. Psych wards are crap holes and are only a help to those in severe crisis. Not a-hole. You may be able to challenge the bill and at least get it reduced. I'm sorry this happened to you. Going to call the hospital and the county health department tomorrow to see if I can get that bill reduced. Thanks. Make sure to request an itemized bill and talk to the billing department. A lot of the time they can reduce it as a hardship. They also sometimes have charities to help with it through the billing department. If you're in the United States, check out NAMI. They actually help people like us and make the system treat us like humans. As someone who has been suicidal, not a-hole, calling the police on your significant other because they told you they feel suicidal is cruel and inappropriate. There are whole crisis lines for that stuff. You need a therapist and psychiatrist, not a nurse staring at you to make sure you don't end yourself for 3 days. That's kinda how I feel. I don't mind her trying to get help for me, but in her panic, she chose the nuclear option and messed up my life even more than it was. Absolutely. She was ignorant, as are the people in this thread. You can tell who doesn't have experience with psych hospitals. In my professional opinion, all they do is load you up on heavy meds and watch you so you don't hurt yourself. That can be incredibly helpful for people who have disorders that must be heavily medicated like psychosis and mania, as well as for people who have actively attempting suicide. Some people with depression, like you, have it because of life circumstances. You need a therapist. Maybe don't cut them off for worrying, but it's very fair for you to be angry and take space for them calling the police on you. Heck, I probably would have broken up with my partner if they did that. Thank you for your understanding. Those 3 days were hell. I don't even know what pills they gave me, but they made me physically ill and all looped out of my mind. They typically start with sleeping pills / antipsychotics because those help really suicidal people a lot. Probably some Seroquel. I know you said your insurance doesn't cover mental health, but call your county's community mental health center and they'll see you on a sliding scale fee. Next story. Am I the a-hole for demanding that my girlfriend apologize to my son and refusing to kick him out? I have been with my girlfriend for 3 years. I have a 13-year-old son, James, and she has an 11-year-old son, Mark. Mark and James have different bedtimes. Mark goes to bed at 8 and James goes to bed at 9. Mark also has severe ADHD, autism, and a lot of emotional regulations problems. Due to his issues, my son isn't particularly fond of him. They butt heads a lot, mainly because my son doesn't think that they get fair treatment, and usually it is surrounding bedtime. Mark often fights us to go to sleep, and by the time we finally get him to stop throwing a tantrum, it's around 8:45. James feels that he should be able to stay up later, because Mark is awake until 8:45, which is 45 minutes past his bedtime. So, at that point, James runs his mouth nearly every night about it not being fair to him, and that he should be able to stay up 45 minutes later. However, this also happens even when it takes only 10 minutes to get Mark in bed. James gets pissed off, runs his mouth and says he should be able to stay up an hour later because Mark was in bed at 8:10 versus 8 p.m. when he was supposed to be. My son can be a dink sometimes when it comes to running his mouth, and he's been spoken to so many times. Grounded more often than he should be as well, because he is disrespectful when running his mouth. So in no way am I condoning his horrible behavior here. I've been trying to correct it, but he's a kid, and he's just being an a-hole. Anywho, at 8:15 last night, my girlfriend was trying to get Mark down for bed, and it's becoming a problem because it's just a bad night. James goes into Mark's room where my girlfriend was and says, "So I'm staying up an hour later then." My girlfriend says, "No, you're not actually. Get out." This sends Mark into a conniption because now he thinks James is staying up an hour later because James is running his mouth and Mark doesn't process information the same way we do. So it sends Mark into a new round of fits. James didn't leave the room and instead says, "Tell me how this is fair. Explain this to me. Why is he staying up every damn night but I can't?" My girlfriend again told him to leave the room. I go in and before I can even open my mouth, James says something under his breath and my girlfriend loses her cool. I have never seen her be anything other than a kind, overly patient woman, so this was a complete shock to the system. She screams, "Get the heck out and mind your own freaking business." James immediately shuts up and walks out. But apparently that wasn't enough because she just snapped. Again, this is not normal. She followed him out to the hallway and said, "Better yet, pack your things. You're no longer welcome in my house. Go back to your mom's." I step in completely, told James he is once again grounded for everything and to go to his room, and then told my girlfriend to step outside and calm down. She's still flipping out at this point and says, "If that kid is still in my house by the time I come back in here, I will call the cops and have him removed. I am so freaking tired of that little puke disrespecting me, and you doing nothing to stop it." She goes outside. I go talk to James, tell him he's out of line, and this will be the last time he opens his mouth to run it. When my girlfriend comes back in, I tell her she needs to go apologize to my son, and that he will not be moving out actually. She says, "I will evict you if he doesn't leave." Actually, no, I think you need to leave anyways. I'm freaking done. She told my sister today that she truly wants both of us gone, and took off for the day with her and her kid, and told me I had better be out of her house before she returns. I have nowhere to go and don't plan to leave, but I still think she's being ridiculous. Am I the a-hole for refusing to kick my son out and demanding she apologize to my son? Edit. Sorry, forgot this detail. I have been living in her home for 3 months. Bought it long before we met. But technically, she would have to serve me an eviction to get me out of here. Pack your bags and leave. It's over. Be an example to your son and keep your mouth shut on the way out. LMAO. No kidding. Or don't, and show him how immature running your mouth sounds. You and your son need to leave. If you force your now ex-girlfriend to evict you, you will really have nowhere to go. Once you have an eviction on your credit report, no landlord will touch you with a 10-foot pole. I am a little baffled as to why I thought, after all what he wrote, that there was a space where she needed to apologize to his little whore of a son he has been allowing to make her life hell all this while. Because OP is the protagonist. The concept that he has moved himself and his teen into a living condition that isn't working can't possibly be his own fault. The fact that he has nowhere to go can't be something he's expected to handle. It must be the girlfriend's fault. OP really buried the lid on it being girlfriend's house. Who else wants to hear the girlfriend's side of the story? I think we did. I am so freaking tired of that little puke disrespecting me and you doing nothing to stop it. I feel really sorry for her. Parenting her son cannot be easy. I think this is the biggest factor here that is overlooked. She's exhausted from parenting a neurodivergent kid prone to big emotions and behaviors, yet has been consistently patient and kind to OP's naughty kid the entire time. Of course she snapped. Who wouldn't at some point? I want to give a little grace to the older kid, since we don't know his situation. Like, what was the divorce like? Does he get the parenting he needs? I guess it's obvious from the way the dad is talking about him. They've only lived there 3 months. Where was he before? Did he change schools? I think a lot of these factors could have been driving his behavior, but we don't really know. But OP needed to manage this the moment it began. Maybe the kid needs therapy, but at least something more than just grounding and having his electronics taken away. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my fiancé that she's useless in an emergency and shouldn't brag about how tough she is? I, 25 male, have a child named Amy, 1 female, with my fiancé Jess, 24 female. We live together in one of the safest cities in the United States. About 4 months ago, Jess and I were walking home at night with Amy sleeping in her stroller. It was a suburban road that we've walked down hundreds of times. Suddenly, we heard several loud banging noises from around a corner. My first instinct was to check out where they came from, and so I jogged a couple of steps forward to peek and see what was going on. As it turns out, 2 teens were hitting the window of an SUV with a baseball bat. I watched them run away, get into a car, and peel out. I turned around to see Jess, but she wasn't there. I looked back the way we came to see her about 50 yards away, running like her life depended on it. I called out to her a few times, but she was obviously scared out of her mind and didn't hear me. A few minutes later, I called her on her phone and she picked up. I explained that it was just a couple of dumb kids with a baseball bat. Jess sheepishly walked up a few minutes later, and I couldn't help but laugh at her. She said that she grew up in a rough neighborhood. She did not, and mistook the sounds for gunshots. I actually did grow up in a bad neighborhood, and told her they sounded nothing like gunshots. But what really stuck with me was her first instinct in an emergency was to abandon a 9-month-old baby and her fiancé to fend for themselves, as she protected her own hide. Well, last night we were watching a documentary together, and there was a scene with a woman who was frozen in terror during an animal attack. Jess scoffed and said that if it were her, she would have fought back, especially if Amy were with her. I looked at her for a few seconds and then said, "Yeah, you don't really know what you do." Jess insisted that she would have fought tooth and nail against any threat against our daughter. To which I responded, "Even a couple of kids breaking a car window with a baseball bat? Let's call it for what it is. You're kind of useless in an emergency." Jess stood up, called me stupid, and walked away. It felt really crappy because she was victim blaming the woman in the documentary when she showed herself to be a coward of comic proportions. Were my words too harsh? Now for the top comments. If she grabbed the kid and ran, I wouldn't call her a coward. Kiddo safety comes first. But to leave the baby? The heck? She wasn't frozen in terror, but she subscribed to the mantra, "I only have to outrun the baby in the stroller." See, what you actually want to do is grab the baby and run, so that you have something to throw back at your pursuers to occupy them while you save your skin. Besides, you can always make another baby, can't make another you. Not a-hole. She said she thought they were gunshots, so she ran leaving her baby. I grew up Philly, I hear gunshots daily. And when there was gunshots near my old house, I grabbed my oldest daughter who was 3 at a time and I'd cover her with my entire body. She did the complete opposite. There was a shooting in front of my old house, and I was putting the kids to sleep when it happened. I grabbed the kids and jumped on top of them before I really knew what was happening. I could not even dream running away just to save myself. Last story. Am I the a-hole for leaving my boyfriend in a different state? I, 26 female, need some perspective on a recent situation involving my boyfriend, 30 male, during a trip to Florida. Throughout the trip, he kept comparing me to other women. Let's be honest, women in Miami often look like they just stepped off a magazine cover. Now, I don't wear a lot of makeup, but I'm comfortable with my natural look. I believe in embracing authenticity and loving myself as I am. However, my boyfriend seemed infatuated with these women who looked like models. He couldn't stop mentioning how much better I'd look if I put in more effort like this girl right here, or that girl over there, which made me feel inadequate and insecure. Hearing your boyfriend of 3 years say, "You'd be more attractive if you looked like her," doesn't make a woman feel good at all. The tipping point came when we were at a restaurant, and he started telling me about how much better I'd look if I wore some more makeup, and maybe showed a bit more skin. I decided to switch up the scenario and told him that if I'm expected to look better, then he needs to lose some weight, and maybe work on getting ahead of his hereditary male pattern baldness, a courtesy of his father. After this, he had a loud outburst, essentially berating me for not looking as attractive as the women around us. I was crushed. Here I was, trying to enjoy a vacation with someone I cared about, only to be publicly humiliated for not fitting some superficial standard of beauty. Feeling hurt, disrespected, and utterly fed up, I made a decision to cancel his flight and flew back to California alone. I refuse to be with someone who values superficial appearances over genuine connection and respect. Now, his family is pressuring me to pay for his accommodations and flight back home because he has no money. They seem to think I owe him something for his outburst. But I can't shake the feeling that I made a right decision for my own well-being. Am I the a-hole for leaving him behind to figure out on his own? Edit. I forgot to mention that I paid for our tickets and hotel room because he couldn't afford it but wanted to travel. Hence why he also couldn't get home. Hence the phrase, "Never bite the hand that feeds you." Ha 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 ha. This dude is a wanker. And it makes me so happy that his type only goes less attractive with age, and he will end up with someone he'll be comparing to you. The dude can dish it out but can't take it. The man-child is not your problem. Or if we're going by traditional gender roles and norms, in which the woman is supposed to look pretty and take care of all things domestic, then as the man he should be the financial provider, right? And yet Opie was the one paying the vacation, and this 30-year-old man can't even get himself back home and called his mommy and daddy to tell Opie that she's mean. Lol. Maybe a model-esque girl in Miami with lots of makeup on can pay for his hotel and flight. Also, tell him good luck. Lol. Not the a-hole. None of those Miami girls are going anywhere near him if he's broke. Am I the a-hole for not sharing a bank account? I, 29 female, have been with my fiancé, 30 male, who we'll call Dave, for 10 years, and we are supposed to get married in the fall. We don't currently live together, and last week we met with a financial advisor. I've been working with him for 6 years personally, and my fiancé has never spoken to anyone about finances, so we picked him, as I trust him already, to talk about combining assets as we plan on completely sharing finances. I was worried I'd be bringing very little to the table. I finished my specialized training last year, so I've either been a full-time student with no actual income or making a very small salary that hardly covered my bills since high school. I basically have my card minimal savings, but I have paid off all my debt. I currently make about 75% of Dave's income. Dave's been working for the last 6 years in a very well-paying job, so I figured he'd have more assets. His finances were so terrible my advisor actually called to speak to me after our meeting to tell me to keep my finances separate from Dave's. The reason is that Dave is essentially supporting 7 other adults, his parents and 5 siblings. 4 are adults. His parents had 7 kids and can't support them in one minimum wage income. They had a lot of government aid, but now that the kids are adults, that stopped. I knew Dave helped out when his siblings were younger. I thought it was admirable that he was willing to help ensure his siblings had a decent home to live in. But now that they've all grown, I don't agree with continuing to help like he is. And honestly, now seeing what he actually paid, I think it's always been way too much. In the last 3 months, he spent over $15,000 on them for things like repairing the roof, putting in an AC unit. AC is not standard or necessary where we live. Heat is. And then paying for them to run it, etc. I'm floored. I told him I wasn't comfortable sharing bank accounts anymore. I tried being diplomatic, but instead it turned into a fight. He was angry that I don't want to help those in need, only my family. I gave my brother all my savings, $5,000 last year when he fell in hard times, but he's paid me back almost $3,000. I wouldn't mind helping his family occasionally, or if they used the help to try to turn things around. My family can give and take.
I gave my brother money because I knew he was going to put it to good use. Dave's family just takes, spends, and asks for more. I'm worried if we share accounts, then Dave will start giving my money away too. I told him the only way I can see this working is that we keep things separate. We split bills equally and control our own spending money, though I worry how this would work with kids. But I just don't want our family to suffer for his family's mistakes. Dave is calling me the a-hole, as his family and some friends. Dave went around telling our friends about how I'm a hypocrite and don't trust him. Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not the a-hole. And if your financial advisor went so far as to warn you, I'd take his advice. Fiancé calling you the a-hole and bad-mouthing you to others is so very not okay. If that is how he acts about this, what happens when you have other big disagreements, like buying a house, having kids, how to raise them? Don't tie your finances to his obviously, and get a prenup even if you go through with this. Oh, OP, not the a-hole, but you need to lay down an ultimatum. You can't marry this guy unless he gets on the same page with you. You can't even share a life with him if he's spending $5,000 a month on a bunch of deadbeats adults, and won't even hear forcing them to move forward with their own lives. This will be the rest of your life, with him and his family insulting you for every rational choice you make. God forbid you have children. Get out of this relationship. You still have time to find someone great and have the life you want with them. Not the a-hole. I'd suggest you reevaluate everything in the relationship. His family is now full of adults, and all he's doing is enabling them to be leeches. They're calling you names because you just burst their bubble. Not the a-hole. You're not being an a-hole. You're being smart. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Edit. I was gonna refrain from commenting on your relationship, but together for 10 years but not living together? Him expecting you to make your money available to his family. His behavior towards you when you're just trying to protect yourself. Maybe there's another decision you need to be smart about. Not everyone lives together before marriage. Even if it takes 10 years to get married. We were very young when we first got together anyways. We've had our reasons, including long distance for a few years due to my schooling. That's really not an issue at all. I do agree that his behavior about this issue is a huge concern, and I'm considering walking away from him. It's out of character for him, or maybe he's just gotten so good at hiding it. I don't know. Now for the update. Thank you for all the support and advice, everyone. It is appreciated. Dave ended up seeing this post, and it forced my hand a little earlier than I was prepared for. But we talked/argued, but ultimately we're done. He admitted to hiding this from me because he knew I'd be upset and want him to go back to counseling. I didn't realize he stopped therapy last year. He never said he was still going, but he did imply it a number of times and admitted to hiding that too. He has a lot of baggage. His parents did serious damage to him, and while he really has done an amazing job of getting out of that situation and breaking the cycle, he's got a lot of baggage. And unfortunately, that baggage is not something I'm willing to carry because I just can't trust him anymore after his massive lie. He feels responsible for his siblings struggling so much, and while he hasn't said it, I think he wants his parents' approval too. He knows it's not healthy what he's doing, but he also admitted that he doesn't really want to stop, because again, he feels like he owes it to help his family since he's the only one who's done well. He doesn't think a family needs a big house. An apartment is fine. Or that kids need extra activities like piano or dance lessons. He thinks we would be fine basically living off my salary. And we would, but it won't be the life I want. And I don't think I'll ever trust him again. And I don't want that kind of marriage. It breaks my heart, but I need to leave for my own sanity. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not letting my roommate's new girlfriend in my home? I, 23 male, live with my roommate, 21 male, and we get along great. Hardly ever an argument. About a year ago, I broke up with my ex, 20 female, because I had finally caught her cheating on me. We had a year-long relationship, full of emotional and mental mistreatment from her. It took a lot of courage to finally accept she isn't the one and to break off all communication. I really loved her, but I have finally let her go and moved on. My roommate was a huge help in supporting me to get over her. Then about a month ago, it came to my attention that my roommate was texting my ex as friends. This didn't bother me, because it really doesn't have anything to do with me. Had I not seen the text, I never would have known. Within the last week or so, it has come to my attention that they're looking for a relationship together. This in itself doesn't bother me, as they are both adults and I have no place in this decision. The part that bothers me is the fact that she would be coming to our house regularly to hang out with him and spend the night. My roommate knows I spent a year being mentally taken advantage of and cheated on, and another 6 months to finally get over it and become mentally healthy again. I was depressed for so long just thinking about her. Still, I decided to see how things would go. She came by the other day, and it was as awkward and hostile as I could expect. She was asking demeaning questions and saying rude comments like, "I see your room is still a crap hole," and "It's really taking you this long to find a new girlfriend? When are you going to get over me?" And "I'm sure your roommates will be much better." Of course, these are things I can ignore. However, I don't think I should have to put up with that. I could barely handle the hours she was here, let alone the foreseeable future. My roommate never spoke up against her, despite her rude comments. He knows what she did to me and what she's now doing, but for lack of a better term, he's pee-whipped in my opinion. I had a talk with him yesterday and told him he can either move out and have a relationship with my ex, or he can stay here and promise to never bring her into the house. I told him that since I'm the sole homeowner, he needs to respect my rules, and while I hate to limit his stay here, I do not trust her in my home, and I won't put up with her mind games. He told me it's just because I'm jealous, and now there's a rift that I can't say we have ever had before. I made it clear he's more than allowed to have a relationship with her. She is simply not allowed in my home. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. This dude knows the hell she put you through and still wants to date her? I need to know nothing else about his character to know you'll be better off if he moves out. And she may well be dating the roommate simply to needle Opie. She sounds like the type, and her behavior is certainly in line. I have a feeling that if roommate moves out of Opie's house, the ex is going to drop him quick. He'd be of no more use to her. Not the a-hole. But your roommate choosing to date someone who totally screwed you over definitely makes him the a-hole if he expects you to just put up with it. It's easier for him to blame it on your jealousy instead of admitting that he's dating a giant red flag of a woman. Definitely not the a-hole. I think you made some good boundaries, and if he loves her so much, he can spend time with her at her place. Honestly, ditch the roommate. He is dumb enough to not realize he's being used as a tool for deliberately trying to hurt Opie. Title: Yes, of course you... Story? Holy crap. Never mind. No, dude. You're absolutely not an a-hole. This is a vicious, horrible person, and you're well within your rights to ban her from your one safe space. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for walking out of my sister's birthday gathering after she announced her engagement? Me and my sister lost our mom since we were kids, and my dad married a single mom who had a son 2 years older than me. Our stepbrother was nasty, selfish, and used to take my things and ruin them under the guise of borrowing. He bullied me especially because of how weak and thin I was. I was dealing with health problems, still am. He even got to my school friends and turned them against me by spreading lies and rumors. We were kids at the time, but I resented him and I still do. I cut contact with him after I moved away for college, but kept in touch with my younger sister, 21. We maintained a great sisterly bond, and because of that, I'd visit regularly since she's still living with my dad. Normally, my sister would tell me secrets, but no longer does. But I figured it's because of distance and me being busy with college. She used to tell me about her previous boyfriends, but not anymore. When I asked, she'd say she's in break. Then 2 weeks ago, I returned home to attend her 21st birthday party that was held at my parents' house. I saw my stepbrother there, which made me feel uncomfortable, and my sister was sitting next to him the entire time and were acting strange. Not like normal step-siblings, but I didn't put much attention to it. After she opened her gifts, she said she wanted to tell us something. She seemed very, very irritable and nervous. She talked about mom's death, stepmom's presence in our lives, and the situations we'd gone through. Then she asked my stepbrother to join her, and he stood next to her and held her hand as she lifted her other hand, saying she and my stepbrother just got engaged. I was dumbfounded, absolutely shocked. All I could hear was my stepmom and aunt yelling at them, calling them names. My sister defended herself, saying they were never siblings, and they needed to stop yelling, but stepmom didn't stop. I looked and saw my dad looking stunned, so I calmly got up, took my bag, and walked out immediately, leaving them yelling at each other. 2 hours later, my sister called crying, asking where I went and why I left when she needed my support and protection from that woman. She went on about how I should have defended her against the family, but I firmly told her it was none of my business, and she needed to figure her own mess out. She kept crying, saying I wasn't a true sister, that she would have done a lot more if that was me. I told her I'd never think of getting together with my sister's tormentor, who's her stepbrother, much less announce our engagement. I hung up, and she didn't stop her guilting text about how I'm making this about me, and not considering what she really wants. She said I was being judgmental just like everyone else. I haven't talked to her since then. Now for the top comments. Not a-hole. And what the heck? That's disgusting in so many ways. Y'all were raised as siblings. I can maybe understand if someone's parents were married when they were adults and they hit it off with a step-parent's kid. Maybe. But this? This is absolutely disgusting. If they thought it was above board, then they would have been honest with everyone that they were dating from day one. They can't surprise everyone with an engagement that expects everything to be lovey-dovey. Not a-hole. Not a-hole. You actually did the right thing by leaving, and were spot on telling her she has to figure out this mess. It's a true mess. I can't imagine how hurt you must feel. There's a reason she kept back from you. It is because she knew full well how hurtful her choice would be to you. She's delusional if she thinks your family will accept the relationship, so she needs to figure out if it's worth it to her. I'm sorry, you must be devastated. I'm getting flashbacks to watching Maury when I stayed home from school sick. This is, quite frankly, nuts, and you're wise to distance yourself from it. It's not your job to protect your sister from the inevitable consequences of her own bad decisions, not least when she's choosing to marry or harass her. Not an a-hole. Last story is titled, Am I the a-hole? My mom wants me to break up with my boyfriend after we found out that my stepsister loves him too. I, 17 female, have a boyfriend, Jake, 18. Jake and stepsister Bree, 18, have been best friends since they were little. When mom and stepdad got married, we moved to stepdad's hometown. I met my step-siblings' friends and over time joined their friend group. Jake and I became official 6 months ago. And since then, I started to see the changes in Bree's behavior. Always excluding me in our conversations, barging into my room when Jake and I hang out, and tagging along in our dates. I confronted her about it, but she called me an insecure witch. I told Jake about how Bree's behavior is making me feel, and he understood me. He and Bree had dinner together last Thursday. Jake told her about boundaries, that he wants to have some alone time with me as his girlfriend. Bree argued at first, then confessed that she loves Jake, and asked Jake to break up with me. She said they have been best friends for a long time, and that it's impossible for Jake to not have romantic feelings towards her. Jake set her straight and told her she only loves her as a friend. She left the restaurant crying and didn't come home. Slept at her grandparents' house. Jake told me all about what happened when he called me that night. I woke up Friday morning to my phone ringing. My friends have been texting and calling me. Turns out, Bree and her friends have posted rumors about me in social media. Defamatory posts such as calling me a home wrecker, AW, and that I have had multiple terminations. I haven't been with anyone, and the procedure is illegal in our country. They also posted photoshopped pictures of me. I told mom and stepdad about it, and they hurried to stepdad's parents' house to talk to Bree. Bree refused to talk to them or apologize to me. Stepdad's apologized for Bree's actions and said he'll make sure the posts are taken down. That's when mom told me to just break up with Jake so everything goes back to normal. I don't think breaking up with Jake will solve anything, but I feel conflicted as I don't want to ruin our blended family. Mom and stepdad love each other so much, and if I don't do anything, it might cause them to separate. So, am I the a-hole if I don't break up with Jake? Not the a-hole. Tell your mom to break up with her stepdad, so things go back to normal. I can never ask her to do that as I have seen how much they love each other. Before all these happened, our blended family was happy. Bree and I and Leo, stepbrother, have all gotten along well. Not the a-hole. Breaking up with him would actually set a precedent that Bree can do whatever she wants to get whatever she wants. Screw that. Stand up for yourself and your relationship. You did nothing wrong. Things will not go back to normal if you break up, because they were not normal to begin with. Breaking up for the sake of your sister would be rewarding some pretty crappy behavior on her part. Not the a-hole. Jake's like you. You like him. You didn't steal him from Bree. And being friends for most of their lives does not obligate people to be romantically involved. Your mother's take on this whole matter is pretty toxic, to be honest. You don't step dead for stepping up. Glad you're getting some support and that Bree's getting help. I know, but I can't help to feel guilty. Especially now that Bree's grandparents are taking her side. Update. My boyfriend 26 male found out I'm 26 female, rich, and started using it against me. Original story. My boyfriend and I met through a dating app 8 months ago, and we've had a good steady relationship. I come from a well-off family, but my parents never spoiled me. They taught me to not indulge in excess and to keep my privilege in mind when interacting with people. I'm currently living in an apartment with only my salary. I haven't told my boyfriend about my wealth. I wasn't actively hiding it just didn't come up. My birthday was a few weeks ago and my parents threw a party at our home. Our home is a medium-sized villa. My boyfriend started scowling when I told him that that was the home I grew up in. When I asked him about it, he told me it was nothing and started smiling again. His mood got worse as more and more of my parents' rich friends started coming in. When I asked him about it the next day, he just told me that he was feeling a little sick. After we got back, he asked me why I hid the fact that I was rich. I told him that I wasn't hiding it, but he started bringing it up in every conversation after that, like telling me that I didn't know how to cook properly because I was spoiled. He brought it up with his friends, telling them I was a spoiled princess who had everything handed to me. It started as jokes, but it got more hostile as the days went on. When I brought this up, he told me I didn't know normal people's problems because I was rich. Did I do something wrong? What should I do? Now for the top advice before reading the update. Well, technically you're not rich. Your parents are. Did he discuss his parents' income with you when you started dating? Drop the man-child though. He doesn't get to dismiss your feelings now due to his own assumptions. Not only that, but he's actively insulting her. Relationships can survive many things, but they cannot survive contempt. What she describes is contempt. Contempt is one of the 4 relationship killers. The others are criticism, defensiveness, and stonewalling. 3 words. Only 8 months. He's 26 years old and acting like a teenage a-hole. Don't waste your time with this guy. Heads up, if you decide to dump him, he might tell people because he was too poor for you. If you got any of these rude jokes on text, I would save them. He will definitely tell people that's the reason. But if they don't have any mutuals, I honestly wouldn't even worry about what he says in the end. Just dump him and move on. You've got to end this. This is clearly something he's incredibly insecure about. It's only going to get worse. What happens later? He starts asking for money, or starts making you feel like crap about something you had no control about growing up. Wealth is success, and if someone is jealous of that, it's ridiculous. Exactly. You did nothing wrong. He's obviously very class-conscious and has preconceived ideas of people who have money. You sound like a humble human being, and he's an a-hole for not admiring that you live by your own means when you don't technically have to. It doesn't sound like it'll get better without him doing some soul-searching and confronting his prejudice, but that doesn't mean you have to accompany him on his journey. Good luck. And now for the update. After I made a Reddit post, I tried to have a conversation with him, but he kept stonewalling me. He made more snide comments, and so I decided to break up. When I told him that I was leaving him, it felt like he was expecting it. He called me a rich witch and went on a rant about how I was leaving him because he was poor. Some commenters told me to expect this, but it still came as a shock. He and I have very good salaries, and I don't know why he said that. He was a good person most of the time I knew him. Some people ask me why I didn't warn him about my wealth. All my relationships before him were with people in my social class, so the expectation of wealth was implicit. Having wealth was not a big deal in any of my previous relationships, so I assumed it was the same in this one too. I'll warn my partners before taking them home into future relationships. This is a tangent, but I wanted to talk about I'm not rich, my parents are thing that many comments suggested. A lot of my friends from wealthy families use that line as a defense, but it is misleading. If I wanted to, I could dip into my parents' finances. I choose not to, but it is still my wealth too. It might technically be my parents' money, but it still makes me wealthy. And having wealthy parents comes with a lot of privileges even if I don't actively use their money. I never had to work a job when I was studying. I had access to the best schooling. I don't have student loans, and my parents' connections open a lot of doors. Having a safety net let me find what I was good at and let me take risks. So unless they are estranged from their families, children from wealthy families are also wealthy. I thank all the people who commented in my original post and gave me advice. I felt like I was doing something wrong, but you made me see that it was his insecurity and jealousy that was the issue. Having a safety net let me find what I was good at and let me take risks. Excellent point. A lot of people don't understand how big of a deal that is. Even if you're not taking risks, just knowing if you get laid off, get injured, have your house burned down or whatever, that you have a safe place to go to and money to get back on your feet can be a huge stress relief. I'm glad Opie recognizes and appreciates what she has. Everything she said is true. Boyfriend is a jerk, and you're well rid of him, Opie. As someone who has never had a safety net, my dad died when I was 18. My mom had a breakdown and totally became a different person to me when that happened. I can't even express how much that safety net matters. You might not know how important that is when you have it, but when you don't, oh wow, life can suck. You sound like you have a good head on your shoulders. I'm sorry, Poldy, because I'm poor card, but you know it isn't true, and don't internalize it. You broke up with him because he was acting like an a-hole. What upsets me about this is that you have such a great attitude about this, but your ex still couldn't cope. I grew up very poor, but my friends were quite well off as I lived in a fairly wealthy area. Like you, they weren't total wankers, so this wasn't an issue. I can't see what your ex's problem is here. I agree. I'm also a very salty, poor person, and I chase the money in all I do because I'm so incredibly jealous of rich people. But if I dated someone well off, I wouldn't be hateful. I would be happy I could be marrying into it. Maybe it's a gender thing, and the dude's been fine knowing him and her, possibly. Make the same salary. However, when he found out about her family, he then immediately put her in a category for being more rich and more wealthy, and thus his fragile ego shattered. Next story is titled, Crazy Update. My 21 female boyfriend, 23 male of 10 months, just told me today he doesn't like the idea of present giving and I shouldn't expect any for Christmas. I've already spent $100+ on him. Original story. I've been dating Rob since February, and I thought things were going really well. Until today. I know it's already ridiculously late to speak about presents, and I wish we discussed this earlier. I just assumed even if we hadn't spoken about giving presents, we would still be exchanging some. Well, today I brought up that I couldn't wait for Christmas, and I was wondering what my parents were going to get me, and he started going off about how he's so against presents and the idea of gifts. I was taken aback and asked, so you're not giving me anything? I just said nah. He told me he's never bought anything for anyone, so I shouldn't expect to be different. We spoke for a long while about why and such, but it's not important, as in the end he still isn't going to give me anything. I feel as if things have changed since this conversation, in only a few hours. I feel as if I'm obviously not too important to him if he hasn't gone out of his way to get me even a tiny gift. I made it clear I do like giving and receiving presents, and I told him I'd already bought his, so he said to take his then. Is it wrong of me to not want to give him his presents if I won't be receiving one? I think it's a little selfish as going to accept his present without giving me anything. I don't want to break up, but I'm wondering how important this relationship is to him. This may sound melodramatic, but I've never been with someone with such odd views on Christmas. What do you guys think? Should I take his present back? Should I give it to him and ask if he'll make an exception and buy me at least a little something? Or should I keep the presents for myself? Also, if things were going to go downhill, is this a ridiculous reason to break up over? Have you ever met someone with similar opinions? Thanks in advance. Now for the advice before the update. I told him I'd already bought his, so he said to take his then. I'm not getting you anything, but I'll happily accept $100+ of gifts you bought for me without reciprocating. Yeah, no. You take that stuff back and buy yourself a nice gift. No kidding. That response is not the response of somebody with a philosophical objection to present giving. That is the response of a selfish, greedy person. Can you return his gift? If you're not going to receive anything, then neither should he. And if he complains, you can tell him that too. You said you're not really a gift kind of guy, and since I won't be getting anything, I didn't think it was fair that I spent this much money on you. I might try to get away from explicitly mentioning money, so it seems less like a tit-for-tat situation. Maybe more like, you said you're not really a gift kind of guy. When I bought a gift for you, I thought we were going to share an experience of exchanging gifts. It's not the same if we can't have the moment together, so I just returned it. He sounds like a bit of an A, to be honest. It's not just about him not believing in gifts. That's fine. What rubs me the wrong way is that he basically told you that you were no more special to him than anyone else has ever been with. I worked a long time in retail, and I think Christmas is pretty cheesy and stupid. But it makes a lot of people close to me happy, including my significant other, and I still participate every year. It's not really about the gifts, it's about making people feel good. If he cared about you, he'd do the same. And now for the crazy update. Firstly, thank you so much, guys. I received so many helpful comments and messages, and I'm truly very grateful. It was nice to see everyone's opinions and have some insight. Lots of things has happened since I wrote this post, and it's been pretty hectic. I decided to keep the gift I got him. It was 2 games for the PS4, and because I like gaming and I didn't have those games, I figured I'd keep them for myself. I knew taking them back would be pointless because I'd end up buying something similar anyway. So I opened them as I was feeling way too stressed about this and played them happily. It did cheer me up a bit, and so did calling a few friends. So I decided to speak to him. I went over to his house, and I asked him if this meant I'd not be getting presents for my birthday or Valentine's either. I just said those holidays were different. Apparently, the only holiday he was against giving gifts on is Christmas. This confused me even more, because if he's against present giving, shouldn't it be for all holidays and not just one? I asked him if it had to do with religious reasons, and he said no. He just disliked the idea of Christmas, and that was it. He had been brought up thinking it wasn't normal to give presents on Christmas. Then I brought up another point that was mentioned a few times in the comments. How come I wasn't an exception? I should be just a little bit important to him, I hope, and therefore he could have bought me something anyway just because I'm his girlfriend, and it would have been nice to receive something. He told me never make an exception for anyone because those were his beliefs, and anyone who dated him would need to understand and respect that. We argued for a long time. Like, I'm thinking we spent at least 4 hours just sitting in his room discussing why he was so against giving me anything. Also, why was he so alright with buying me something for my birthday and Valentine's, but not Christmas? I would understand if it was for religious reasons, but he clearly stated it had nothing to do with that. He blamed it on his parents, which makes the next part even more interesting. His mother comes into the room, asking us to come into the living room. I knew they were leaving on the 24th for a small vacation, so I was wondering if this was a small goodbye, or maybe even perhaps to scold us for yelling at each other. The house is big, but I don't doubt they could have heard a little bit. And then I was speechless. Sitting on a dining table are his parents and 6 wrapped up gifts. I looked at him and was like, really? You don't celebrate giving presents on Christmas because your parents are against it, but they do? The parents sat us down and gave each of us a gift, and told us to open it now, and would have our own small Christmas just a day before. I opened it, was a lovely gift, thanked them, etc., all while killing my boyfriend mentally. I was a little annoyed. And then this happens. He starts grinning while I'm glaring, and takes out a gift. For me. I want to cry at this point. What on earth is actually going on? He hands me the gift. It is a Swarovski necklace, looking pretty expensive. He smiles. The parents leave to give us some space, and I smile back, still really freaking confused. He said it was hard to try and hide this gift while I was yelling at him earlier, but all along he had made an exception for me. All of it was a surprise. He doesn't believe in present giving, but still had bought me one anyway just because he thought I deserved it. So at this point he still doesn't believe in giving anyone presents, but he did buy me one. I was immediately really happy and hugged him. It's a lovely necklace, and I apologized over and over again for yelling. We have a really nice time and head back to the bedroom and watch TV, cuddling and having a sweet time. He then asks for his present. I tell him I've opened them already and kept them for myself, so I'm going to need time to buy him a new one. He suddenly becomes furious. I explained he told me he wasn't going to get me something, so obviously I wasn't going to be giving him one if I wasn't supposed to expect anything back. Gets really mad, saying I should have kept it present for him, because in the end he did get me something. But how was I supposed to know that? He begins to scream about how I'm an ungrateful cow, and how he shouldn't have spent a penny on me. His mother comes in, tells him to calm down, and he screams at me to leave the house and he never wants to see me again. I do, and take the necklace. Perhaps a bad move. I explained I will buy him a new gift, a better one, and still he's too angry at me to understand he only needs to wait a day. I left and came home really confused. I tried calling and he hasn't answered. I've been calling since I left the house 3 hours ago. Guys, I don't know what to do. I'm so confused, and today has been one hell of a day. Any advice is appreciated. I'm thinking of going back there tomorrow. I'm sorry if this wasn't written the best way. My head is all over the place. I've also spoken to my best friends, and they're also confused as hell. Thanks in advance. So, he tells you that he doesn't want to exchange gifts, then gets upset when you believe him? Sounds like a real winner you've got there. Yep, how dare she not read his mind? Don't you know anything about Christmas magic, OP? Yeah, he's a jerk, who threw a fit and offended you over something you could not possibly know, OP. I can't fathom how he thought it's gonna play out. Also, have fun playing games while wearing an expensive necklace. And hopefully celebrating being jerk-free from now on. Can you imagine living your life with a person who thinks it's okay to play games with people's emotions like that? Awful. What happened here was, he had a very specific scenario worked out in which you were going to be swept off your feet by the surprise necklace. What didn't take into account is that, when you surprise people, you risk them having an unpredictable reaction. Now he's butthurt that you didn't react the way he scripted everything out in his head. I think you should send the necklace back and break up. But if you do try to work it out, you need to tell him to be more respectful and show more empathy. This whole exchange showed that, in the process of giving you a gift, he was entirely focused on himself. Why would you try to work it out with someone who called you a cow to your face? Not only that, but the whole family dynamic is super weird. The parents heard them arguing for hours over this, and then just surprises them with gifts? And all the mom has to say over her crazy son calling his girlfriend an ungrateful cow and leave the house, never to return, is a simple calm down? Either this is usual behavior on the son's part, or it's possibly learned behavior from the dad. Still don't want any of that nope cake. That is some weird game playing on the part of the boyfriend. That kind of pranking and gotcha is just plain sicko. He kept you in his room 4 damn hours telling you why he won't give you a gift, and then pulls the old, "Where's my gift?" A friend doesn't treat a friend like that. I would not find his behavior forgivable, and would return the necklace. And I surely would not want to spend the next few years trying to figure out when he is pranking me and when he's being truthful. I'd end the relationship.